Hello and welcome to Spinster's Library. I'm Claudia and I'm so excited to tell you about my TBR for Victober 2021. Since this might end up being a little bit of a longer video, let me just point you towards the description box where you will find timestamps for this video so you can jump to the bits of the video that you're interested in seeing, because I do have a lot to talk about today. In fact, so much so, I made myself a little list on my phone just so I don't forget anything. I'm just assuming that most people watching this video already know what Victober is. But if you don't, if you clicked on this video for some strange other reason, let me tell you that Victober is a month-long readathon hosted by three wonderful booktubers. That's Katie from Books and Things, Kate Howe and Lucy the Reader. And this month-long readathon? What's a readathon, I wonder? And this month-long readathon takes place during the month of Victober. Calm yourself. During the month of October, from the 1st to the 31st of October, and it is all about Victorian literature. So that is literature from Britain or Ireland that was published during the reign of Queen Victoria, which, if I am not mistaken, is 1837 to 1901. That's the short summary. If you need to know more, I will link in the description box the announcement videos of the three hosts in which they go into great detail about what exactly it is and also what the challenges are, and they give a lot of excellent reading recommendations. So if you're new to Victober, just watch their videos before you come back to this mess of a TBR video. I think this is my third or fourth year taking part in Victober, and in previous years I've always made an effort to include that in my booktube channel as well, to make videos that link to Victorian literature. So if you want to have a look back at what I've done in previous years, do check out the playlists that I've linked in the description box as well. And this year will be no different. I'm planning to obviously read some Victorian literature, and I'm planning to make some Victorian literature related videos. But now let's get into the books that I'm planning to read, and then after I talk about the books, I'm also going to talk about the new Victober music playlist. So if you're interested in Victorian music, definitely watch through to the end, or alternatively go in the description box and click on the timestamp for that. But now, books. So the book I'm probably most excited to read in October, and this is a reread for me, is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I have often called this my favorite classic, and it's probably up there for my favorite book as well, to be honest. Even though it is less than perfect, I like to criticize this book. I love to criticize this book almost as much as I love to read this book. The last time I read The Picture of Dorian Gray, I believe was in 2018 or 2019, which wasn't this gorgeous penguin cloth-bound edition, but a much more mundane looking one that I actually annotated. So the last time I reread Dorian Gray, I believe that was also during Victober, I annotated it for the first time. I made a video about that, link down there, and I haven't read it for 2 or 3 years. So it is definitely time for me to reread this old favorite. And I am actually hoping that some of you are going to join me in that, because together with Jack from the channel Spread Book Joy, I am hosting a mini Dorian Gray read-along this October. So I'm hoping that lots of you are going to join me and Jack in rereading this. Well, I say rereading, Jack has actually not read Dorian Gray yet, so for her it's a first time read, and for me it's an old favourite, and we thought that we'd open that up to as many of you as want to take part. This read along is going to be predominantly hosted on Instagram and on Goodreads. So on Instagram, if you want to take part, if you have an Instagram account, share your reading experience, your pictures, your stories under the hashtag Dorian Gray 2021. And on Goodreads, if you have a Goodreads account, there will be a Goodreads group that I am going to link in the description box for this video as well, so you can join the discussion there. We are going to be reading this from the 16th of October to the 25th, and that is a 10-day long read along. The book is about 200 pages long, and it's exactly 20 chapters long, so we will be reading 2 chapters a day, also about 20 pages a day. So it's not super fast paced. I think it should be easy to keep up with, even alongside your other Victober reading. So I'm hoping that loads of people are going to join in the Dorian Gray 2021 read-along that is neatly nestled into Victober. Anyway, enough about this book. Check the links below to find the links to the hashtag and to the read-along on Goodreads, and also, of course, to Jack's channel, Spread Book Joy. In addition to the picture of Dorian Gray, I am, of course, going to try and meet the challenges set by the hosts of Victober, because all three of them always set a little reading challenge for the month. Let's start with Katie's challenge, which is to read a Victorian book set in the countryside and or the city. And this, for me, is the perfect opportunity to finally read some Thomas Hardy. By the way, please don't write any more comments complaining about the charity shop stickers on my books. If you see a sticker on a book, I can guarantee you that I've tried my hardest to get rid of it, okay? I don't leave these on here for fun. I don't leave these on here to show off the excellent price that you get in the Cats Protection charity shops. They just, especially the Cats Protection ones, I don't know what they use to stick the stickers on, but it's just gonna be on there forever now, I'm afraid. What was I going to say? Book set in the city and or the country. Now, I have it on good authority. In fact, I have it on Katie's authority herself, the highest authority when it comes to Victorian literature, as far as I'm concerned, that all Thomas Hardy books would meet this challenge. He is an author I have not yet read at all, and I don't really know why I've stayed away from him for so long. I think it's somewhere in the back of my head I have this idea that all his books are incredibly dreary to read, super depressing, and just not fun. But that can't be the case, because he is so popular here on BookTube and in the Cats Protection charity shop, clearly. So his books must have something appealing about them, and I am hoping to find out next month what exactly that is. And I'm not going to do that alone either, because my friend and fellow booktuber Andrea from the channel Infinite Text is going to read this with me. We have done buddy reads in October before, and it's always really good fun to read books with her. And yeah, this year we have picked this Thomas Hardy book. I cannot tell you anything about this book at all. I assume it's about a guy in a hat. Although the back does start with, Jude Fawley is a rural stonemason with intellectual aspirations. So the word rural here makes me think that this is probably going to fit Katie's challenge of reading a book set in the countryside and or the city. Kate Howe's challenge this year I found one of the most intriguing Victober challenges ever, and that was to read a Victorian sensation novel. This is a genre of Victorian novel that I am completely unfamiliar with. Obviously, I've heard loads of good things about Wilkie Collins's books, but I've never read any of them. So I had a little bit of a research, and in particular, I like to pick at least one sort of more obscure novel in Victober. But this year is actually going to be the exception. This year, all of the books I'm reading are very well-known, very mainstream novels, because I just thought it would be a shame to not start with one of the more popular sensation novels rather than diving into the obscure ones. So the novel that I've picked, and I haven't got it here in paperback because I'm probably going to read it on ebook or an audiobook, is Lady Audley's Secret by Mary Elizabeth Braddon. Lady Audley's Secret is, again, one of the better known sensation novels, a novel that is certainly not as popular as the Wilkie Collins novels, but popular enough that it still gets printed and read today. So I'm excited to see what this genre of Victorian literature is going to be like. And if I like it, there's loads more where that came from. I was surprised at the sheer volume of sensation novels that I could find, well, at least find the titles of, Finding the actual books is a whole other story. But I was surprised by the amount of these sensation novels that were published, especially in the 1860s, that I am hoping I will be able to dive into if I enjoy this one. The final host's challenge, and that's Lucy's challenge, is to read a Victorian book with a female main character. And I gotta say, Lucy, you definitely did not make that a difficult challenge, because at least based on my own completely unscientific experience, I feel like most Victorian fiction has at least one female protagonist. There is a lot of exploration of women and of girls in Victorian literature, and something that I very much enjoy about it. And it's also not so strictly separated, I feel, like it is today, where today when you get male authored novels, more often than not, the main character will also be male. And when you get female authored novels, I feel like it's a little bit more balanced, where some women write male main characters and some write female main characters, and some have a good balance, I guess, in their protagonists. But in the Victorian period, there are many female main characters written by male authors. However, I have not chosen one of those. I have in fact chosen a female author, and this is another one that I have been waiting to read. This is Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell. I have read one Gaskell novel previously, and that was North and South. And to my own disappointment, I didn't like it. I buddy read that one with Andrea as well, and she also didn't like it, which kind of made me feel a little bit more validated in these feelings, because based on everything I'd heard about North and South, I thought I was going to bloody love it. It was compared with Pride and Prejudice, one of my all-time favourite books, and I thought, based on summaries, based on reviews that I'd read and seen about it, that it was going to be a new favourite of mine. And when I read it and I didn't like it, it put me off reading Elizabeth Gaskell for a long time. But now I think it's time again. Cranford is a short little book. I'm not even sure if it's a full novel or if you'd consider this a novella. And from what I understand, it's a sort of domestic novel, which I enjoy very much, set on a group of women who dominate their own little village society. It sounds fun, it sounds interesting, it sounds quiet, and I like quiet books. I feel like maybe this is something I'd need to balance out the sensation novel. I like books that go into detail of a certain society. I like books that focus on relationships between people, and this sounds like it's going to hit all of those notes for me. And also going to buddy read this one with Jack from Spread Bookjoy. So there's going to be a lot of communal reading for me this Victober. The final host's challenge is a communal one, a group challenge, and that is to read a popular Victorian book that you've not yet read. And as I said, this year I'm mostly reading popular books anyway. I'm not really going into some super obscure novel like I've done previous years, and there is one huge, like, massive hit from the Victorian period that I haven't yet read, and that is, let me just get it from the floor, Dracula. In particular, my horrific Wordsworth Classics edition. I actually did make a video inspired by this edition of the book. The video is called The Ugliest Covers on My Shelf Classics Edition or something like that, linked down below, where I show you some truly horrific cover design. Bless you, I guess he doesn't get much sleep in the line of work he's in. Anyway, yeah, so Dracula by Bram Stoker, another late Victorian classic that the modern imagination has run away with. This is my massively popular Victorian classic that I just haven't read yet, even though I've had this edition for a very long time. There is also a group read-along, which I believe is called Gothic Tales by Elizabeth Gaskell. I will not be joining in with that because I'm already reading a different Gaskell work, and because I'm trying to be realistic with what I can actually accomplish during a month. I think 5 books is probably doable. Probably. We'll see. So I haven't taken on that extra book on my TBR, but just be aware that there is another read-along for Gothic Tales. I hope I'm getting the title right. It might be Gothic Stories. Anyway, we're done with talking about the books. Now I want to tell you about the new and improved Victorian Ladies music playlist. So a few years ago, I made a playlist of music that was written or published during the Victorian period, however, from all over the world. So I didn't just focus on British and Irish composers, but I did focus on just women composers. So a few years ago, I put together this playlist called Victorian Ladies. I meant it to be listened to while you read your Victorian literature, but I found myself getting distracted by the vocal pieces. So I've made a new playlist this year that is all instrumental, and I've added some more composers that have since been recorded and published. Most of us don't listen to classical music by women composers, and I'm just going to be bold enough to say it like that. I have a degree in music, and even during my musicological education, we very rarely were taught about female composers. But of course, they existed. You might be familiar with some of them. You might be familiar with the ones that were in some way related to other composers, like Fanny Mendelssohn. But there is a whole wealth of women composers that wrote beautiful, stunning music during the 19th century. As I'm talking here, I'm showing you pictures and names for some of the women that are included in this playlist. They are from various different countries. Some of the composers are featured more heavily on the playlist than others, and that's simply because some of these women composers have got better PR in our day than others. So there are some names that I had never heard of, but where I found that some orchestra had recorded their entire work, for example. And then I found other composers that seemed to have been very influential in their time, but that today I can't find any recordings of, especially not on Spotify. But I think overall it's a interesting playlist to listen to, and I urge you to give it a listen, even if you don't normally listen to classical music. And let me tell you, I don't normally listen to classical music. Well, not for fun anyway, for work, sure. But I really enjoy listening to this playlist while reading. It's all instrumental music. Included are, I think, around 30, it might be 31, but it's also still expanding slightly. So 30-ish women composers from all over the world who wrote music during the Victorian period. The music ranges from solo piano pieces to pieces for church organ to chamber music. So there's some piano trios, quartets, sextets, string quartets, up to bigger ensembles, and of course orchestral works. It's a good balance, I think, between those different sort of ensembles. There's some bombastic music, there is some sad and quiet music, there's a lot of romantic music because, you know, that was the style of the time. And just overall, I think a great variety. Right, as you can tell, I am super proud of this playlist. Give it a listen and tell me if you think it enhances your reading experience. Also, of course, by the way, if you think that something's really missing from that playlist, if you know of a piece written by a woman composer during the Victorian period that is on Spotify, do let me know and I'll add it to the playlist as well. By the way, I'm not making any money from this playlist, so Spotify is monetized through ads if you have a free account. I don't. I pay for the premium account because I genuinely cannot handle advertising in between music pieces. It makes me aggressive. So I pay for the premium account. If you do that, then you don't get the ads. But just a warning, if you only have the free account, then your music will be interrupted by advertising. Again, I don't make any money from that music. I just want to bring some of these amazing pieces of music closer to some of you who may not have heard of these composers. And there you have it. Those were my reading and my listening plans for Victober. I haven't spoken about what I'm planning to do on this channel yet. There's going to be one sort of slightly bigger scale video I'm hoping that I'm kind of furiously researching at the moment, which will be about cycling in the Victorian period, because I'm reading a really fascinating book about that, and I'm finding a lot of interesting primary sources on that. Not strictly speaking book related, I guess, but maybe I can link that to reading somehow. So that's going to be more of a history focused video. I am also, this is going to be a bit strange, but I'm also working on a little musical video. So we'll see how that goes. And then I did that last year where I followed a Victorian recipe. I'm hoping to do something similar again this year, perhaps following some Victorian crafting instructions or some Victorian food recipes, something like that. It's still kind of being planned and worked on. But yeah, I'm very excited for Victober, and if you are too, then definitely watch this space. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!